let's get started. Call the roll, please.
Thomas Blonde,
Here.
Tim Davis,
Here.
Phil Ellinger,
Present.
Carol Killian, Larry McDermott,
Here.
Ruth Traeger,
Here.
Bishop Dirk Triplett. We have a quorum.
Okay. Looking at the minutes, has anybody reviewed the minutes? Very long.
I'll move approval.
All right, there's a motion, second.
Mr. Blonde,
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
thank you.
Okay. Brownfield Advisory Committee report, Clyde Morris site. And he's gonna be late. So
Yes.
we're gonna
Yes, sir.
push it back. So I guess we'll go to you, Rob.
Hey,
Oh, there he is. Oh, we got
Here you
you.
go.
Don't even let him sit down.
All right, you're on, JR.
they just called your name.
Emery asked me to give you an update on the Clyde Morris Boulevard Brownfield site. We just received a report back from DEP. They reviewed our sampling that was done in June. Unfortunately, a couple of the wells that were showing clean before are showing some small levels of contamination, which means the plume is moving a little bit. Consequently, they asked us to put in a couple more wells, which we were going to do, and we'll resample again in November and present that to DEP and see what they have to say. We are making some progress in that we're removing small quantities of the contamination, but we're still looking at a overall cleanup cost of somewhere between $5 and $10 million. We're looking for ways to fund that, and one of the ways we're doing that is we've hired an archaeologist, a forensic archaeologist. And what they do is they go back through our earlier insurance policies that we've had that were in effect at the time of contamination, and they in fact have found at least one, which means we may be able to recover some money from those insurance companies. What happens is those insurance companies have been bought out several times, actually, since the 50s. But the liability stays with the insurance company from those years up to in the 60s sometime when the law changed. There's also a possibility that we're looking at trying to find some liability, what we call other responsible parties, those being people that actually caused the contamination, and the forensic archaeologist is looking into that. That looks somewhat promising. So we may be able to cover a major part of that $5 to $10 million.
What is the contaminant? Is it gasoline or?
It appears to be residuals from a coal tar, residuals from a coal conversion plant, which is coal tars and various organic compounds. It's a tarry-like substance. If you look at it, it looks almost like tar. It's dark black.
What do you think? Was it a road paving thing, or was it just, any idea what the source of it was?
Well, we have aerial photography from back then, a sequence of various photographs that show open pits that were just used for disposal. It was the practice in those days, unfortunately. And it appears as though the generator of this particular waste was allowed by the city, or at least was not prevented by the city from dumping this waste into those open pits.
Well, I was in Tampa a few months ago looking at some property, and I had an environmental layout of the area, and down the street from the property, probably about within a half a mile, was the actually largest environmental quote-unquote area in the state. They've pumped out millions of gallons of water, taken out thousands of yards of dirt, and it was actually, back in the day, and you and I are about that time of our lives, we remember this, we would go to the gas station and we could buy new oil, or we could buy
Used
reclaimed
oil,
oil.
yeah.
And this was a place where they took your old used motor oil and reclaimed it, and all the sludge and junk that was filtered out of it was thrown in the ground. And
Yeah.
it's right over by the bay. I mean, it's right within, you can see the bay from this place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on the bay for a reason, because they had the barges come in, bring the 55-gallon drums of this sludge oil, you know, from all over the country. So it's a terrible way we you know, treat the world. But okay, what do you think the long-term ramifications going to be? Is it going to be one of those things where we're just going to have to? It's going to take a number of years to get it done, and you know, what we call a long tail loss.
Well, we're looking at two different processes for cleaning it, for mitigating it. Let me put it that way. One is a cleanup. It's an in situ cleanup, in which a chemical is injected into the ground, and in this case, it actually burns or oxidizes the contaminant. This is a brand new technology we're investigating because it shows promise, although there's not a full-size operation that we can refer to and see how successful it is. The other one is to encapsulate the material. And basically, they take these very large augers, like 10 or 12 feet in diameter, and drill them into the ground and mix concrete in with it. And then the concrete encapsulates the contaminant and prevents it from spreading.
That's a huge project.
That's a huge project. It was just done recently in Sanford. I went and visited this site, and it's an enormous effort. And that's showing up to be maybe a little bit cheaper to do.
Right.
The problem with it is, though, it doesn't get rid of the material. It keeps it in place. I like the idea of destroying this compound as preferable. Now I've given you all the bad news. The good news is that this land has some real value, particularly with the Embry-Riddle technological park that they're developing, because this property, of course, is contiguous to the airport, which means potential direct airport access. So it could be worth a couple $1 million. And, of course, we'll look to redevelop it along those lines.
Okay.
Any questions? Any other further questions, I should say?
I wondered if we could switch gears real quick, and Rob, if I can just take a couple minutes. One of the things we're looking at doing is just totally different from what you're just talking about, is what I call a Fentress initiative. Looking at the Fentress area from ISB to Mason, which at one time was the prime industrial site for the city. It was created back in the 60s, I guess, is when it was first created. And looking to see what can be done to revive that area and bring it back to a useful state. There's a lot of space there. There's a lot of available space. I've talked to a few people this week. I was hoping that Ed Schwartz would have been here this morning. I invited him, but Ed's time. But he might have thought I said 9 instead of 8. But who knows? But what I'd like to do over the next few months is to put in our schedule here or whatever, to review what it would take and what an initiative would be, and then present it to the city commission. And that might be signage. It might be I've heard about the road. And that's where you would come in,
right?
And maybe the signage too, because I remember at one time there used to be a fund of some sort, of reserve fund. I don't know if it was held by the Fentress community or whatever, to provide for common area improvements, and one would have signage. All of these things, and to present them to the commission and perhaps also to the ownership of the businesses along there, because what my concern is that if we don't try to do something, there are other areas that are starting up, and Consolidated started one out west of Mason in different areas. And it's not that we don't want them to do that, we do. But we also want to make sure that we have the ability to present Fentress as a viable alternative, especially if you need space now, with all the existing space out that way. So if you would, if you could kind of pencil on our next date, which would be September 18th, I would like to probably talk about the infrastructure and the roads out in that area to kind of see where we are with those.
Certainly.
So it's not a point of putting anybody on the spot or anything like that. We just want to analyze what the challenges are and what we might be able to do with those challenges in the future.
Okay, a couple of responses to that. Number one, several years ago, we did widen Fentress. If you recall, that was actually an undersized road. The lanes were only 9 feet wide, and we brought them up to city standards of 12 feet. So that's made a significant difference from a standpoint of the truck traffic that goes along that road. Secondly, the city is currently undergoing a what we call a wayfinding project, which is as you probably know, is signage to bring primarily tourists, but in this case, it kind of falls in what you were talking about. There could be included in that signage for the industrial park.
Find out if that was available too. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So there's a couple things we could do. Probably we also ought to look at the water and wastewater capabilities, what the capacity is out there, and that would require utilities people. Perhaps we could have them come to that meeting too, if you like.
Okay. Yeah, basically just try to make sure that, and Tim, you know more about this type of stuff anyway. When you're trying to bring somebody in to show them sites, they're going to have a checklist of what they need, whether it's utilities or what size building or the height of the building, whether it's clear span, all these different things. But there's other things as well, and signage and road and different other things. Your infrastructure capacity is all a part of that. Just the electrical current situation out there, all these different things that I'm sure is a factor. Absolutely.
One question. The Ed Schwartz, is that the same one that had Florida Production Engineering?
That was
same
Ed
Schwartz.
Ralph.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that was
Ed didn't
Ralph.
sound quite right to me. I remember
Ed
also.
is the son. He runs Benchmark Realty in the area, and still owns those buildings. He and his brother has Halifax Plastics out there. It's right on the very front.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Part of it was one of the first buildings put out there.
A long time ago, when I was in the consulting engineering business, we did some work for Florida Production Engineering, cleaning up a site, among other things.
Yeah,
so,
it's still being cleaned up, I'm sure. That's that big pond out there with the aerification.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was our project. Anyhow.
Any other question?
Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. See you on the 18th then.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, JR.
8:37. Okay, well, that's good. Would be about right time. Okay, Rob?
Good morning, everyone. Rob Earhart with the county's Economic Development Division. It's happy to be here today. Obviously, very exciting things happening in the city of Daytona Beach. I see Tim's name in the newspaper this morning, following yesterday's ICSC showcase, and sounds like it was well attended.
Yeah, the convention was pretty large, actually. Good to see.
Great. So it's nice to have a big
2008 levels.
and to have a big anchor opportunity like One Daytona to really help pull in some traffic. So, just some dates that you might be interested in. The VMA, they're having a showcase event at the ICI Center at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University on September 18th. That's a Wednesday from 2 to 7 p.m. The LPGA Symetra Tour Championship, the actual tournament itself takes place this year over 4 days, not 3. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, ending on September 29th. However, the same as last year, the Blue Ribbon Committee locally is working to make this a week-long event, and so they have different activities planned for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. On Wednesday includes a Pro-Am. You may not be aware that Team Volusia EDC board approved an expenditure of $20,000 to provide financial support. Mr. Chisholm was at that board meeting and indicated the city was also providing their level of support, and the county is also providing some financial support. So, again, very strong community support. Embry-Riddle is a a big sponsor. Brown & Brown is a big sponsor, so it's going to be an exciting week. And if you've not had a chance to participate in any one of those events, a high-energy event, particularly Tuesday night at Daytona 500 room, where they have the Meet the Pro party, kind of the pairing for the Pro-Am. And Team Volusia is going to be working to bring site selection consultants to the area. The hook there is obviously the opportunity to play golf in the Pro-Am, but a really unique hook is the ability for the site selection consultants to do hot laps on Tuesday night. They can play golf in any community, but it's not every community they can go get laps on a major speedway. So Keith Norden and Denise Motter working to coordinate that. Also, longer range, the Chamber Alliance is actively working to plan their Buy Local initiative on November 12th, and that's going to take place on the concourse level at Daytona Beach International Airport. We've been working closely with them to try and make that a success in terms of the amount of space that they're going to have available. I've provided to each of you a copy of the quarterly briefing that we gave a few Fridays ago, August 9th. You also have a copy of the latest version of the EDQ. There's a nice article, several nice articles in there, including one about DME Automotive right here in the Daytona Beach area. Just briefly, as far as the quarterly report goes, we always try to provide some insight to a statistic that or a metric that you may read about in the paper, and maybe we don't dial into it in a lot of detail. So that's what you find on page 1. Overall, second quarter labor statistics. If you turn to page 4, you'll see that for the county, the average for the quarter percentage unemployed was 7.1%. That compares to 8.8% a year ago. Specifically for the city of Daytona Beach, the average for second quarter was 7.9%, compares to 9.3% a year ago. And if you make that same comparison for all the major cities listed, anybody with a population over 25,000, again, 2013 numbers are below, percentage unemployment below what it was a year ago. So from that perspective, things continue to look encouraging. On the next page, page 6, you can see the bar chart that shows what's going on with residential new construction permits. This is for the second quarter. It's the first time in a while that we've hit total dollar value over $100 million. Sandy Burke Bishop with the Volusia Building Industry Association has gone on record as saying she remains cautiously optimistic, and she'll drop the cautiously when we see 3 or 4 consecutive quarters of activity over $100 million. I draw your attention to page 8. This shows new construction activity for commercial permits, and again, it's an improvement second quarter over first. But in particular, on page 9, you can see for Daytona Beach, we list second quarter 13, 2 permits valued at just over $10 million. What I wanted to point out is this does not include the $6 million permit that the city issued to the Speedway for their civil package. I think that is the result of how people characterize what is, quote, new construction. You know, it's an existing facility. They're doing underground work. Some people may say, hey, it's $6 million. That's new construction. Some people may not see it as new construction. In any case, that figure does not include that $6 million. That represents mostly a 1 permit, $9.8 million, and that's the Museum of Art and Science expansion that's taking place to house the Hyatt and C.C. Brown.
What's happening in Berry? 22 permit.
Yeah, they've got a new housing development.
Oh, okay. So it's under commercial.
Yes.
Okay.
Residential and commercial foreclosure activity continues to, in terms of sales of foreclosed properties to the right, continues to look promising. And in terms of new filings of foreclosures, it was, down a little, up a little, down a little. We understand the numbers from July are significantly down. And so it'll be interesting to see what these numbers look like for the entire quarter a few months from now. The next page shows consumer confidence. Obviously, 70% of the economy generally is based on how confident consumers feel. I think locally, you could argue that's tied in part to some of the great projects that are taking place, but also the number of sales of existing and new construction homes. We put a few slides in here about what your typical entrepreneur look like. It came from a report that Babson and Baruch College recently put forward. And then we highlighted the Daytona Rising project and finished with a quote from Miss Lisa France Kennedy. And so we always try to reinforce a theme that Phil Ellinger started when he was the director of the county's economic development group, and that is buy local.
Who is that? Phil who?
Who's he?
And I think it's evident that ISC and the Speedway are big supporters of that, and that that project had no sooner kicked off than they convened Barton Mallow convened a nice day-long effort to explain to local interested parties, if they were qualified, as to how they could get involved in the project. So, unless you have any questions, that's my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Well, as I was telling you before, Evelyn Fine says that the tourism numbers are up, the dollar per night is up, the percentage stay is up. We've got vertical construction, both commercial and residential. That's, to me, indicative of the economy, probably more than the statistics are. And when those types of things happen, I'm a very early riser, and he's actually earlier than me. And I ride my bike up at, on A1A, and this is anecdotal information, but over the last 2 years ago, I could ride out in the middle of A1A in the morning and nobody would hit me. Now the traffic's starting to pick up. There's trucks moving around. That's the type of thing where I didn't see 2 years ago because they weren't selling anything here. There weren't items being sold. There wasn't construction being occurring. Those types of things. And I really think that it's picking up. There's cautious optimism. I know in the real estate market, there's things moving. People are starting to put their toe in the water a little bit on expansions. So as that confidence increases, I think we're basically on the tip of the iceberg right now. So, thank you very much, Jim. Jim, how are you this morning?
Doing well. Sorry I was late, folks. But no, I don't have anything to report yet.
Okay. Nothing.
Well, think of something.
Nothing from the chamber. The chamber's not doing anything. How's the search going for the chair?
I can say that. What little I know of it, though, they are interviewing right now this week about 5 to maybe 6 finalist candidates, and they're bringing them in town. They're meeting with individuals and stuff on our board and all. They're looking to hire somebody at our September the 26th board meeting. And once they get that agreed upon, at that board meeting, I guess they'll probably have to give a few weeks' notice or whatever. After they come on board here, George Mirabal is planning to stay on for an additional month while they're here, just to more or less get them acclimated and trained and show them where everything is and all in our office and such, and really kind of get them ready for the new year, because they're going to need a couple months to plan.
Well, Biketoberfest will be going on during that time and different other things. So getting ready for race weeks coming up in January. Yeah, so it's going to be it's going to be a daunting task. And I tell you what, we're probably very fortunate in this community to have George Mirabal to step back in and to keep the things going, because a lot of communities don't have a George Mirabal type, and they're out there searching for somebody. Meanwhile, the economic development of the effort of the chamber would be going in different directions. So my hat is off to him and for him stepping back in. And I'll be honest with you, there's a little spring in his step when he came back. It was just a little spring in his step, and I know he has bad back and a bunch of other things, but it was good to see him. Good to see him. Good to see you too.
Thank you.
The Team Volusia report is attached to your minutes. I do know from going to the board meeting last week that they have over 30 projects in various stages of development and 3 on the final stage, which would be just short of naming. And they figure that if any one of those hits, it's good. And I think they have a probability, what they're assessing is that 2 out of 3 would hit. It would mean a number of over 600 jobs for the community. I think that was the number that he said. And he's cautiously optimistic. He doesn't want to, you don't want to put the, count your chickens before they hatch type of situation. But I know that they're developing their scope of attracting business, and they're going out into the Chicago, Denver, New York, different places, even Palm Coast, believe it or not. They had site selectors in Palm Coast. They did one local convention that they did here, trying different things to see if they can get interest in Volusia County. And I think they've been fairly successful. Get 30 or so companies at least to start looking, and that's what you got to do. You just get it down and go in the pipeline. It goes from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get it into 4 and 5, and that's a stage where they're spending, the company or the site selecting company is spending time and money to develop a site, to look at sites and different things. So I don't know if you had any other comments to go with his report, but
That'll do fine. Just want to mention that Keith is out of town. That's why he cannot be here. And Denise Mott had a conflicting meeting, and so that's why she could not be here.
Yeah, most of it's explained on your memo that's in the packet, but I tell you what, when you got 35, 44 projects in some stage, that's a lot to do for that small staff, to be honest with you. It really is. But I know you guys helped them quite a bit, and so is Dr. Sharples. Okay, just one quick announcement for Daytona Vision Foundation. We are actually having a meeting in September 14th on Saturday. It'll start at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. What's the tenor of the meeting? Anyway, this is the 5th anniversary of the initial vision initiative. There was 168 different initiatives on the first vision plan. What we're going to do is to whittle that down to basically a folded 8.5 by 11 sheet, so that the 6 different initiatives categories, one is on each side of the sheet, and that you'll have 3 to 5 initiatives. So mainly 30, 25 to 30 initiatives. We've already sent out, say, the date notices to the former participants. We'll be sending out, I think that Jim sent some to the chamber. I know Ouija Kundig is working on the community groups. It is going to be short, sweet, and to kind of drill down to where the effort will then be renewed just about every year at a similar meeting. That way we can keep better track of it. Over 5 years, I think the city has identified almost 200 different things that are part of the vision plan that was passed by the city commission. And we're going to try to point out some of those main ones at that meeting. But the point of it is as a community, the economy has changed, and it has changed what the vision was in 2008. You know, maybe some of the same basic thoughts, but the economy's kind of made us peel back a little bit on some of the things. So we're going to try to do that, simplify it, make it an annual event. That way the community can always participate in it, both the business and non-business shareholders or stakeholders. So September 14th, it will be at the second floor of the police community room. It's on the second floor of the police department on Valor Lane, I think, Valor Road, off of Mason. So hope that you don't show up. Okay.
Larry?
Yes, sir.
And did you want, like I say, a survey done?
Yeah, there is a survey out that have you looked at it yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was, and we're going to send that out in probably this week.
You want me to send it to anybody or?
Yeah, we're going to have you send it, and we're going to send it our list and your list.
Okay.
So that survey, what is this called? Survey Monkey?
Yeah.
Okay. No, but basically the survey is to point out some issues that we want to start people thinking about before they come to the meeting. Just kind of point the issue. What we don't want, and excuse the word, bitch session. You know, we just don't want people up there griping. We want people that are pointed at a positive direction for the city. Okay. Moving on, I've asked Ed Schwartz to be here today. Ed and his family own a considerable amount of property on Fentress Boulevard. J.R. Sloan was here earlier. J.R. Sloan, he's a city engineer. And this is not going to be just today. This is going to be over the next several months. We're going to look at the Fentress initiative, as I want to call it. It's one of the three initiatives I've kind of identified with Emory that I want us to look at. And so I've asked Ed to give me a kind of a thought about what it would take to revitalize that area, or maybe not revitalize, but to make it a very feasible area for new business to reside there and to work there. You're on.
Thanks, Larry, for the invitation.
If you would, stand up by the, state your name and address and all that good stuff.
Okay, Ed Schwartz, Caldwell Banker Commercial Benchmark Real Estate, and local resident and owner of property out on Fentress. I guess this is the audience comment section of your meeting.
No, actually, this is actually on an agenda item. That's the reason I called you.
Oh, okay. Fentress. Wow. On the way in today, I decided to drive by Fentress just to kind of remind myself of, to give me some perspective to talk about here this morning. And one of the first things that comes to mind is, well, first off, Fentress is probably one of the initial business parks in Daytona. It was developed, probably some 50 years ago. When Fentress first was built, or the road put in by Consolidated Tomoka, they were the original developers of it. In fact, I think the two streets, Fentress and Bayless, are named after former chairmen or owners of Consolidated Tomoka from the old days. And when they built, my father was the first tenant in the park when they put Fentress in, and that was the Florida Production Engineering building. We built. We have about 250,000 square feet out there of rental space that we taken the old buildings and subdivided them and, turned them into multiple tenant buildings and everything. Fentress. Major design problems on the entryway of the park. The boulevard coming in, it doesn't have any identification. It's kind of like, I would say, almost the forgotten business park of Daytona. A lot of the development has, leapfrogged around Fentress and, over more closer to the LPGA area and Mason Avenue, and which is all good and everything. It's just that Fentress, or that business park, is the only business park that has some it's right off of ISB, right across the street from the Speedway, and what they're doing with Daytona One and the Speedway and all those things. I think it would make sense to to try to address the entryway of our only central business park, Daytona Business Park. I'll tell you one of the biggest things that I observed this morning. I took a picture of it. Is there's a park directory sign. Is anybody familiar with the park directory sign out there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is an embarrassment to Daytona Beach, guys. That is just the directory. Half the people on the directory aren't even in the park anymore. The directory sign was built, I guess, probably in the 60s or 70s. It's all rusted. It's really an embarrassment, and I think that the design entryway to Fentress with the 7-Eleven driveway right there. I've pulled in there many times, and the traffic gets stacked up on ISB. People pulling into the gas station there. But I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. Larry, what is? I'm not sure.
Well, no, you're pointing out some very valid points. Okay, what about at one time, Ed? And I'm going back to the '80s with my memory when I was
Right.
on the board of Volusia County Business Development Corporation.
Right.
There was I'm going to say reserve or trust fund that was being held, and maybe Consolidated was holding it at that time, which contributed to such, because back then even the signage was an issue back then.
Right.
And both a signage on the north side of the park at Mason Avenue and signage that's there on the south part of the park was there ever anything that you used to contribute as a owner out there to a centralized district or ownership group or whatever out for the in-common signage issues and those types of things?
I do remember something, some time ago was brought up, in the 90s, that there was a fund that was set aside, and I think the fund was as much as $100,000 that was set aside for the entryway and sign design for Daytona Business Park or Fentress. I don't know whatever happened to that. It was, the park was originally the mastermind of what they used to call the Committee of 100. Remember that, Larry?
Yep.
And that was made up of Gary Cunningham's and my father and people like that in the community, and it's Team Volusia is kind of the
that was all a volunteer effort.
Yeah, it was all in a volunteer effort, and some 50 years ago, the leaders of this community felt that, we needed a central business park, and Consolidated Tomoka, of course, they owned everything out there, and they still do today, much of the property out there today. But I think that, if I was going to do anything, initially to dress up the park entrance, I think there needs to be some good identity for Daytona and for the park. It's an old, tired park. I mean, there's no question about the roads are too narrow. In fact, half the asphalt on the side of the roads is all chipped off from big trucks. The nature of industrial park is big trucks, and the traffic.
They were widened though, I think.
Yeah, it'd be nice to the ditches along the side are steep, so you can't get in there, and the property owners can't mow the swale. It's not like like today, a modern development today is you have a nice slope where you can get in there with lawnmowers and cut things. It's we continually call the city about coming out and cutting the ditches and cleaning out the ditches in front of our properties.
So they're having maintenance issues in common areas?
Yeah, I would say, to some extent, I know about 10 years ago, they, believe it or not, they did put about a 1-foot apron on both sides of Fentress to kind of widen the road a little bit. Up until then, it was a 20-foot wide asphalt street where, no wider than your typical residential subdivision. They did make it a little wider, but it's the road is in somewhat disrepair. It'd be nice to have curbs on the side. And
what's the drainage like out there?
Drainage is terrible, but I don't know what much can be done about that. There's everything out there, including Indigo Golf Course. It gets pretty soggy after any type of rain event that happens. You got a high. There's the land doesn't percolate very well out there.
Well, back in the 70s and 60s, when those buildings were built, there wasn't really the concept of encapsulating your own stormwater on most of those. So most of the stormwater slopes out into the swales or those ditches,
Right.
And where's the outfall? I guess it's a J.R. Sloan question. Probably need to ask where the outfall is for all those ditches and stuff.
All I know is I pay a hefty stormwater bill every month to the city of Daytona, my water bill for about that, Emery.
We talk about that.
It's major. Higher than I have property in Ormond Beach, and it's nothing like Daytona's the highest, and it's kind of, to a sense, it's kind of an added tax, so to speak, and it does affect trying to get good rents or cost of operating a business, because that gets passed on to tenants. But with that, with that being said, we still have stormwater problems out there. Water sitting in the street during heavy rain events in the ditches, it does nowhere to go, and and I don't know whether it can be piped out of there. In fact, we got a ditch in front of our property at 440 that when it gets filled up, it goes onto my property. The runoff goes into my property. Just the opposite. And here I'm paying for stormwater management. I think that this is all about economic development that we're trying to talk about today. I'm not here to crybaby about the
No,
park.
no.
I mean, I'm not here to, I just think, I mean, it's an old park and it's got some design problems. And, today, if it was built today, you'd have a nice, right out on ISB, you'd have a nice entry sign that's very visible from ISB. You wouldn't have commercial development right smack on the corner. You'd have a little buffers and, in a nice entryway like, a modern business park does today. DeLand Crossings or something, or it's got some some identity. There's no identity to Fentress. Fentress is just another street in Daytona. It's some of the issues that we have on Fentress right there are very similar to some of the issues that you have in the older sections of Daytona. Bad roads, bad drainage, but one thing that I would, if there's anything that you guys can help with, and I think it's really an embarrassment, is that directory sign out front where the mailboxes are. That area could be dressed up, and most business parks today, like any residential subdivisions, upscale residential subdivisions, they have an association fee or something that could be developed to enhance the beginning. And I think the property owners on Fentress would be amenable to that. I think that might be something that the city could do something and match some funds, or I don't know, or to try to dress that up. You're right across the street from the Sprint Tower. I mean, it's major area of town.
What do you think about the you're talking about being old and shoot, I own
Yeah.
I own old buildings too, so
Yeah.
and they're a major deal in trying to keep them maintained.
Right.
What about do you see tenants in there or landlords that are not maintaining their buildings or could actually spend some money on their buildings to upgrade them? Is that a probability? If they're how would that happen? Is that just as an economic factor of rents or what?
Well, I mean, I think that it starts from the appearance of the park initially, and property owners will upgrade their buildings to meet that. The buildings are older and tired. They're many of the buildings in the park are well over 30 years old, and that is the issue. You don't get the higher rents. The newer stuff today that goes up is tilt wall construction. It's good drainage. Good larger truck courts and employee parking and it's just in our buildings that we own, we've spent millions of dollars on our buildings over the last 20 years and renovating them and upgrading them, and there's still stuff we could still do. But now that what is going on with Daytona 1 and the Speedway, we personally, we're kind of looking back and trying to figure out what the how Fentress is going to evolve the next time. Tim, I work with Tim. I don't know if you all know that, but Tim and I work together, and Tim's got a piece of property that's right in front of the racetrack property that's right at the entrance of Fentress. I never could figure out that use for that property in the park from the very beginning, but it was approved, and that was 20 years ago, Tim, or 25 years ago, and just you know, Fentress in that area may one day evolve into something totally different than what it is right at the beginning, at the entrance, you know. I mean, those old industrial buildings at the very beginning may come down and hotels be built, you know, which might be more of a, a better use of the property, you know, as things evolve, you know, in light of what's going on across the street and next door, you know. I mean, it could be more, you know, of a retail, you know, kind of use. I don't know, you know. I know with what Tim's got for sale, I mean, that's a very likely use of, you know, the property other than a racetrack. I mean, it might be a hotel there, you know, one day or more retail. But at the, you know, at the same time, it is the, you know, the entrance avenue to, you know, to a lot of industrial, economic business. I mean, probably Fentress employs probably as many people in one concentrated area as any area in the county. Would you say, Phil? Or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of jobs, and you know, and then of course then you add them around the Mason Avenue area, you know, and then it's without a doubt it's arguably the most heavily employment area in the area.
Well, I guess my question is, as we study this over the next few months, and I've jotted down some notes, which are, you know, what you're stating.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that would you all assist us in, you know, maybe helping us with thoughts about, you know, the quote unquote fixes, maybe help us develop the owners, you know, maybe an ownership group. I'd love to have a meeting here, and after meeting about this over the next couple of months with the Fentress owners in the audience.
Yeah.
And seeing about a Fentress plan to take to the commission.
Yeah.
And that way, they would, and perhaps one of those is the sort of association, and starting reserve funds, and maybe some sort of cooperative effort. Because you know, you really can't unring the bell. I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
But there might be some things that you can do that, with the cooperative effort of everybody, to bring it up to a bit higher level. Because, you know, if you want a 150,000 square foot brand new building, you're going to go build it somewhere off the Mason Extension or somewhere else.
Right.
But if you're a company that you need 35,000 square feet to manufacture your widgets, and you want to move in today, you got to go to a Fentress type of situation to try to find it, because, you know, especially if it has certain, you know, three-phase power or whatever, you know, whatever your requirements, because the buildings already exist. I mean, you got Severino all the way up to the north, and he's got 35,000 square feet there, I think. You know, and it's a manufacturing facility.
Right.
It had AO Precision in it for years.
Right.
So those are the types of things we need to really look at, because that building is primed for somebody to walk in to start manufacturing something.
Right.
And I know that, you know, you look at a building like that and you say, oh man, it's 35 years old. It's, you know, yada yada yada. What would enhance all of those buildings in that area? Maybe some sort of a common development, or not development, but, you know, improvement code or something like that, or something to not to try to regulate, over-regulate the area, but say, okay, you know, we need to step up, you know, painting the buildings, fixing them up, doing landscaping, whatever it is, to make the area look better.
Right. I mean, I think, you know, from the city of Daytona's perspective, I mean, if I would, you know, certainly Fentress is the most, you know, the location is you know, one of the best locations for employment in the Daytona Beach area. I mean, my tenants, the people that I have, I mean, they're there because it's easy access up to Palm Coast and down to New Smyrna and the land, the interstate, right there. I mean, you got to, even during, heavily trafficked times when when there's a lot going on in the Speedway, you got the back entrance out of LPGA, man, you're up on I-95, no problem. I mean, that's important for the people that a lot for my tenants that I have and people on the street. From a Daytona Beach perspective, I mean, if you want to showcase your industrial economic development in town, you're going to drive down Fentress. You're going to probably are going to drive down Fentress, and you're going to, it would be nice to have some initial identity at the front of it, and I think that the people that own property on Fentress would be amenable to form some kind of thing to give it some identity. I don't know. What do you guys think about Fentress? I mean,
Yeah,
what's your thoughts on it? I mean, Rob. I mean, it's old. But it's it is a big. It's an important aspect of economic development, I think, in the Daytona Beach area. I mean,
Any other questions, comments?
No, Ed's right. I mean, just because, again, it's probably one of those things is that we all realize that it's very important, though, but then again, I mean, from day to day, you probably just take it for granted, and you just kind of forget about it after a while. I mean, until you brought it up, I mean, I appreciate the report here today. I'm going to recommend that chamber-wise, we put that on our list of recommendations to City Commission next year.
And I like to develop, as chairman prerogative here, to develop a list of specific initiatives, Jim, to do that. And I agree with, and if the chamber would help us, that would be great. And not, what's the old saying? If it makes money, tax it. If it still makes money, regulate it. And if it stops making money, subsidize it. We want to get to that situation, but we certainly want to make sure that as from an economic development standpoint, that businesses will populate that area. Over the slump, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen, thousands of square feet of empty buildings. Right. And that's just because those companies went out of business, or they moved, or whatever, they got bought out, and transferred, or they built, or like AO, they built, buildings and moved, which was a great thing.
When Radon moved off the street a couple of years ago, when that opened up 150,000 feet on the street, and then Crane Can went out, and all of a sudden, we got 500,000 square feet on the street vacant. It's starting to fill up. I'm filling up my buildings. I'm starting to get those filled up. But I was there for 10 years. I never had a vacancy. I had 100% occupancy for 10 years on my buildings, and then, in recent years, I went down to as much as 50%. Now I'm starting to fill it up again. But anyways, I think from an image point of view for this community, we need to address the entryway of Fentress Boulevard. I think it should be an image builder for. Everybody that has a business wants some identity, and it's where you live. You identify where you live, and the subdivisions and modern stuff.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you coming in this morning.
Sure.
And we'll be following up.
Sure.
With you.
I'll be glad to work with y'all. But look at that sign. Guys, drive out there. Take a look at that.
We will do that.
Sign. It's embarrassing.
All right. Well, thank you. Any other issues? Any other community comments out there in the audience?
The date of the next meeting, is it in September or October?
September 18th. It's right down there on your,
Yeah, it says, the agenda says October.
There's a thing here, scheduled next meeting.
oh, excuse me. Ah,
October?
why wouldn't that, why we wouldn't, yeah, why would we not have a September meeting?
Well, I will be here.
No, sorry about that. Do we still schedule a September meeting? Yeah, okay, September 18th. All right, no other business, we're adjourned.